The Real Juggle campaign with Madison Berkeley.
I'm Coco and I'm the founder of Madison Berkeley. Through recruitment, Madison Berkeley works hard to change the face of real estate, and this campaign is part of that commitment. I'm also a mother of 2 boys under 4, and I'm really passionate about our latest campaign. With me today from Madison Berkeley and joining the discussion is my wonderful colleague, Jack Heckel.
Thanks, Claire. I'm not a father, so this is all totally new to me. But with us today, we've got 2 brilliant contributors. I'll let you both introduce yourselves. If you wouldn't mind telling us your job title, the company you work for, and since this discussion and campaign is all about parenting in real estate, how many children you have and what ages they are. Becca, if we could start with you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Harper from Rapleys and I head up the investment team. I have got 2 children, one girl who's 3 and a boy who is 1.
And Anna?
I'm Anna Whitton. I'm Director of Corporate Affairs at Get Living. And I have Rosie, who is 3, almost 4, and William, who is about 16 months.
And Anna, I have the pleasure of knowing your 2 children really well. Can you talk us through your day-to-day routine whilst balancing your job and childcare?
Oh gosh, good question. Well, my husband normally leaves quite early, so I get the 2 children up, give them breakfast, get them dressed, and take them into nursery, which can be quite a battle at times to get 2 young children out of the house, get them dressed, not have to change your outfit in the morning, and get them to nursery feeling like you're ready to start the day. Then I normally leave the office so I can get home for bedtime, because I very much believe that I want to be able to see my children. So I leave the office, get home for bedtime, and then switch on my laptop when I get home, normally check my emails and catch up on anything I've missed.
And your husband does pick up in the evening?
Yes, he does, most of the time, yes.
And Bex, same question to you.
So we're really fortunate, I think probably post-COVID, that our working from home days are different. So on an office day for me, it's great. I just get myself ready and I leave the house. And then I can get into the office early and then leave a bit early to do pickup. So that's great. And then on day working from home, my husband, he normally gets up. I mean, our day starts at like 5:15, so we've got plenty of time. So yeah, my husband's normally out walking the dog. I do breakfast, get them dressed, off to nursery, and then I'm back at my desk. And actually my day probably starts earlier on that day as well. Work from home all day, and then we've got a really good nursery, so they've got the long hours. I normally do pick up from when I'm working from home, and then my husband's back to say goodnight.
You recently returned from your second maternity leave, like myself. Do you think that it's sort of been any different to the first time compared to the second time, Bex?
There's a little bit more to juggle and a little bit more negotiation that needs to happen. But ultimately, no, not really. My company's actually become more flexible while I've been off and more supportive. So that's definitely helped. Just knowing in the back of my mind that you've got that a bit more sort of support and flexibility, that's great. But they're both at the same nursery, so it's kind of the day is still the same, which is good.
And Anna, as someone with no juggle children outside of work, it's super insightful to hear how you manage it. And it sounds like you mentioned your husband, a strong partnership is key. I'm interested to hear how difficult the juggle is for women in real estate as opposed to men, Anna. It isn't just women, well, it's not just a women's issue, is it? You've got to find that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the things that frustrates me the most, is that people see childcare as a women's issue. It is not a women's issue. In most cases, obviously, it takes 2 people to make a child, not in all cases, but in most cases. And I think that it's really important that men are louder and prouder about their roles as a father in the workplace. And I think, there's some great dads that Get Living who absolutely are loud and proud about their roles as father, and that's really helpful. But I do certainly think that still too often in real estate, there is some kind of stigma still attached to kind of a man taking on a really active role as a father. How many times have we heard, why can't your wife do it if, someone needs to leave early because their child's sick, or someone takes off paternity leave, takes time off to look after their child. I think that it's really important to help women progress in their careers, that they have men being proud fathers in the workplace to help them get there, because you absolutely need a supportive partner or a supportive network around you for you to be able to succeed in your career.
I mean, Bex, you mentioned that on days where, you can get up and get out of the house, it's so important. What are your thoughts on that? So what can we do in the workplace so men can feel more confident about saying, right, I've got to leave at 4 o'clock to collect my kids from nursery or whatever it might be?
I think I'm really lucky. I've got a very supportive husband who is very hands-on and gets on with it. And it does sort of feel like a bit of a 50-50 split. Also, where I work, I don't know the full stats, but I think more men do 5 days in 4. So they have a day to look after their kid. And those guys are now partners and equity partners. So it's being fed from the top down. There is definitely still a bit of a struggle, especially I find, maybe I'm generalizing, but there's a lot of wives or partners who don't work. And that's where you get the blocks and the comments or the looks or I'm going to look at my watch, what time have you turned up, or things like that. It's definitely getting better. We're not fully free of it yet.
Anna, how do you think more companies can change this culture? I guess there's larger, bigger corporate companies and smaller business, but how can they all sort of align to change it?
I would say that flexibility is absolutely key, and companies that don't embrace flexibility are essentially going to lose out on talent. And I think that's quite widely accepted in the industry now. I do think there needs to be both a policy and cultural shift across organizations. I think that I'd love to see equal paternity and maternity rights across the board, but that is going to require some investment from the public sector. And I feel like it's often put in the too hard to deal with box when so many other things are going on in the world. But if you look at places like Sweden, like Norway, where equal paternity and maternity is the norm, what we see is more women in leadership positions. We see more women in CEO positions. So they must be doing something right. I also think we need to do everything we can to support other women. And that's not just women supporting other women. I think it's men supporting other women as well. How many times have we heard, oh, I don't want to go for that role because I'm thinking about having a baby. I'm not sure about this job. Is it going to be too much when I've got 2 young children at home? And I think we just really need to encourage women to be more bold, be more brave, be more confident, and really go for it. Because if a company wants you, they want you, warts and all.
I completely agree. I mean, it's definitely something we're seeing at Madison Berkeley, and talking lots to female candidates who really like the look of a job description, but they say, oh, I can only do 3 out of 6 of the bullets, or I'm not sure I can do this. And you can speak to a male sometimes, so you're not generalizing, it's not all the time, who will say, I can do that, and they're equally skilled to do that role. At Madison Berkeley, we're really coaching and talking through those female candidates and giving them that confidence to apply for the roles and to go for them. Yeah, it's definitely something we really try to do as a business.
And Bex, Anna just mentioned it, but just touching on the word flexibility, we wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. It was reported to us the other day by a female, a boss who was male, mentioned that flexible working is a threat to their business. What do you think about that comment, Bex, and how can decision makers deal with these issues without it just being a tick box exercise?
I think if you're going to offer it as a company, you need to fully support it and encourage it and almost sort of lead by example. Flexibility is key, and I'm not saying it's every week. What's great is knowing in the background. I mean, we know we've got a job to do. We know what we've got to do. We know what money we need to earn. And Anna touched on it later, like we'll open our laptops in the evening once the kids are in bed. We'll catch up. But it's just having the flexibility that your phone rings and it's nursery and they've hit their head or they've got a temperature or whatever, knowing that you can then liaise with your other half and be like, what's your diary? What's my diary? Like, who has a bit of a free gap? Go and pick the kids up, run it till bedtime, and then get into bed and then pick your work up. And you just know that you've got the support of your business behind that is really key.
And I think I've learned that so much working with Claire over the last few months, having just come back from mat leave herself, and actually just being open-minded from a business perspective. Claire to text me being like, oh, I've got to go and do this, or I've got to go and do that. And, I obviously know that she's working, and she does sending me emails late at night and just trying to find that balance. Just honesty with the whole business and teams is great.
So when I was junior, I remember when women were running off to collect their children, it was thought that, from the junior staff that they were slacking off early and there was no understanding. Whereas now I think we can be more open and transparent, but it's still changing that old school senior mentality who have actually had all the support, managed to be really successful in their career, but not everybody has been able to have that support at home. I think it really is changing their views at the top. Anna, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely views are shifting. And, as I said before, if we don't embrace that flexibility, we are going to lose out on talent. And any good leader of a business knows that they need to think about the talent that's coming up through the business. So I think you either change or you lose out.
The Real Juggle campaign with Madison Berkeley.
So let's touch on childcare costs, because as we know, we're all dealing with huge costs. And I think if you don't have children, you don't quite understand how high those childcare costs are. And the UK childcare system is second expensive in the world, and salaries just aren't increasing at the same rate as childcare costs. And Anna and I have children in the same nursery. We get the yearly message saying that fees are going up and our salaries just aren't increasing at that rate. So I feel that more women are leaving the industry because they might not be breaking even, they're not seeing their children. And so it does seem for some like we have to choose between having children or a career. How can you have both, Anna?
I think just before I move on to answering the question, one of the things that we also don't really talk about is the fact that the birth rate in the UK is massively declining and has been for the last 15 years. So I think I'm right in saying that the birth rate now is 1.5 children per woman or just below, which is well below the replacement rate of 2.1. And what does that mean? It means that we're going to have an aging and declining population. It means we're going to have a smaller workforce in relation to the number of pensioners. So not as much money to fund the pensions of the aging population. And that is a huge economic and societal issue. And it baffles me somewhat that politicians don't really consider it more, because, and again, I think it's just the short-termism of our politics, unfortunately. But this is a massive issue, the fact that people aren't having children, and it's partly down to the fact that childcare is so expensive. And as you said, we're having to choose between work and having children, and all thinking about when we have children, and then all of a sudden time gets away with you and fertility is obviously not as high. So the kind of macro issue isn't often talked about enough.
Yeah, that's so true. Sort of in terms of like, once you can afford the childcare, then your fertility and your clock's ticking and you might pass the point of being able to have children. So completely get it. And Bex, what do you think? How can you have both?
Some of it is just pay reviews at appraisals, like push, like women don't push in comparison to men. I know that just from like conversations, and we're very happy to sit back, no confrontation. And I think partly you can push there throughout your career, like from the get-go, but also the nursery costs are just extortionate. I think you've probably benefited from the drop in 9 months. It seems to have been like a massive oversight. For us, if you have one child, a 4-year career gap, that's huge by the time you can send your kid to state school. So if you want to send them to nursery in the interim, you're dropping a huge amount of money, and then you add a second into the mix and it's literally eye-watering how much money. So other things have to go in life in that interim, and then you can choose what you do from when they're 4. So it just seems to have been a massive oversight in that sort of gap, which, I mean, it's been sort of addressed with the 9-month drop, but will it help hugely? I don't know. And there's also people that fell out of that, so then they took a 4-year or 5-year or 6-year whatever career gap, that then actually getting back into the workforce is really hard.
I mean, Claire and I were talking about it the other day, and Claire mentioned some figures to me, and I honestly couldn't believe it. I was horrified as someone who doesn't have kids at how expensive it is, especially when you've got 1 or 2 kids with an aging population and childbirth rates declining. I thought it was crazy at what sort of cost it was.
Yeah, I think that's why I think we've got a stat here that 85% of women leave the full-time workforce within 3 years of having their first child and 19% leave completely. I guess we've sort of touched on it, but is there anything more that needs to be done to retain these women in more senior roles?
It's really difficult because, you know, as we've discussed, 2 children in, let's be honest about the figures here, 2 children in full-time nursery in London is about £4,000 a month. So you have to be earning quite a significant salary to just cover the cost of those 2 children in nursery. So you can absolutely see why people aren't going back to work. And then when you work out what you're going back to work for, is it worth it? So it's really difficult. And I think that a lot of people probably don't want to go back to work full time because they might want to spend more time with their children and have a better work-life balance, but then trying to find childcare solutions that work for a part-time salary and part-time childcare again is really difficult. So unfortunately, I don't think there is any easy solution apart from the government taking some action to subsidize childcare with, you know, the longer term view that this is going to get more women back into the workplace, which is going to boost the economy. So it's not just a private sector problem, it's a public sector problem too.
I think, Anna, you've touched on it before when we've been talking, but also when it comes down to real estate and building places, destinations, we can't just have men developing them, coming up with the ideas. And
we would all be in complete agreement that women need to be involved in building the buildings that we live in. We all talk in the real estate sector about creating places, about creating great places to live, places to work, places to spend time. You know, 50% of your end user is going to be female. So women need to be involved in designing these places, in creating them, in operating them for them to be a real success. And, you know, clearly more women in businesses, the data speaks for itself, show that you're going to have more innovation, more ideas, more diversity of thought, and a better bottom line. So we absolutely need to do whatever we can to keep women working in the industry, not just for successful businesses, but for successful places across the UK.
Yeah. And Bex, I want to just talk about first getting back into work post mat leave. What did your business do to kind of help you with that transition back into full-time role? You know, I know a lot of people can lack confidence or feel, you know, businesses have moved on whilst you've been looking after the little ones. What did they do for you, and or what else can we do to kind of improve on that coming back initially?
Well, one of the main issues I came across was sort of the legislation versus what our HR team, how they were educated in sort of the mat leave policy, etc., etc. I did a sort of semi-phased return, and I used up. You accrue your annual leave when you're off on mat leave. So I used that, even though I came back full time, I used every Monday I took off as annual leave. So I kind of worked 4 days, and that was great. Mat leave 2, I actually came back to a promotion. So it was like the band-aid was ripped off. I was straight back into heading up the team. So, which probably has pros and cons, but
yeah, how did you feel about that? Kind of having double whammy, just come out from mat leave and being promoted. I mean, I'm just thinking, was there any part in your mind where you were like, can I handle both of this?
Yeah, daily.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, having my husband, and he was very, very hands-on at the start. He was doing a lot more of the nursery drop-offs and pickups, and while I was just finding my feet. So no, but not just my company, but the wider property agency network were very welcoming, very understanding. I seem to have got to an age where actually my peers have got wives, or other people have come back from mat leave. When I first started, no one really went on mat leave and came back, especially in the sector that I'm in. So more and more, a lot go client side. There's less agents, but it's definitely having a support network and just sort of an understanding. And you do come back with, my struggle is you come back with so much annual leave, but actually I can't take it all to do my job well, if that makes sense. So whether there's some flaw in there, I don't know, but and that needs addressing. It all comes in peaks and troughs. So hopefully when there's a quiet patch, I can take some more leave off just to regroup.
And Anna, how about yourself at Get Living? How was that initial introduction back into it, and what did the business do to support you?
For my second maternity leave, I only took actually just over 4 months off. So it was quite a quick return back to work. So I think people were probably quite surprised to see me back so soon. But everyone was great. My team were great. And my boss was brilliant. I'd seen them a few weeks before as well, which is always helpful to kind of keep in touch with everyone before you come back. So yeah, I think having a really supportive team at work that gets it is so helpful. And also, having a partner or a support network around you that can help you when you transition back into the workplace, because things like your confidence are always impacted, I think, when you come back from maternity leave. Even if you've only had a short time off, you kind of come back thinking, oh gosh, can I still do this? And Rebecca, it must have been hard for you coming back from maternity and being promoted. I think that's it's a brilliant achievement, but you probably kind of thinking, oh gosh, can I do this? And you know that you can, but you need really supportive people around you to keep encouraging you and telling you that you can do this, you've got this.
Bex, out of curiosity, did you feel a lot of pressure to come back soon after mat leave, given the fact that you were promoted?
I was promoted, and they all said lovely things about me, so I can do this.
Going straight into the deep end. And Anna, you just mentioned that you came back after 4 months. Do you feel a sense of pressure that you had to come back, or was that kind of a decision that you're like, I want to get back into work and working full time again?
Yeah, I think because my first maternity leave was during COVID, I didn't really enjoy it that much. And I felt quite brain dead after the first 6 weeks. So I think I probably took a bit longer for my first maternity leave than I would have done. So the second time round, I didn't feel any pressure to come back. It was just a personal choice. And I think one that worked for me, because getting my little boy into nursery at a young age was really helpful for him as well.
In terms of that returning to work and having a supportive team, I guess in real estate, and I think Bex, you mentioned it, some ladies don't come back after maternity leave, but you can feel really isolated as a female if you are the only person who's going off on maternity. Many mothers, not just in real estate, I think, feel soon as they come back to work, or the tiredness if your baby's not sleeping at night. So having that supportive team or someone internally that understands those issues, it's not every day you might be feeling like that, but there might be some days more than others. I think that's really important. And I guess some real estate businesses don't have the HR, the people, infrastructure, but it's just educating, I think, senior males, if there aren't as many females in the businesses, about the challenges that you do face returning back to work. And just the keeping in touch days I always hear is, really, so you still feel part of the business, you understand what's going on, and when you come back, you feel like, you pick things up where you left off and you haven't joined a new business. And I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in real estate in enabling smoother transitions back to the business for women, really. So, yeah, I think that's really important. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm really keen to get involved with women returning to work from more of a supporting each other, starting a WhatsApp group, sort of an NCT network, because I think actually just talking to other mums, a problem shared is a problem halved. How's your business doing it? Suggestions to other business, and we just all need to communicate more. But look, it's been really interesting to get your opinions and comments on issues raised today. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Please do listen to the other interviews in this campaign series, which aim to tackle all the issues faced by parents working in real estate, and do share them with your networks.
Yes, conversations being started is how things eventually change, and that is the aim of this campaign series. Thanks again to Rebecca Harper, Head of Investment at Rapleys, and Anna Whitton, Head of Corporate Affairs at Get Living.